In 1990, Japan was the richest nation on Earth. Land in Tokyo cost more than all of California. Today, those same streets feel like a museum. Salaries have barely moved in 30 years. The middle class simply disappeared. It didn't collapse overnight. It dissolved slowly. One policy, held too long. That was the weapon. They set interest rates to zero, and they never took them back. That single act rewrote who owned Japan's future. Go back to 1989. Japan's stock index, the Nikkei, hit 38,915. The highest it had ever been. The whole nation felt immortal. Ordinary families owned stocks, owned property. A factory worker in Osaka had more wealth on paper than his father earned in a lifetime. Then, the bubble burst. By 1992, the Nikkei had lost 60% of its value. Banks held mountains of worthless loans. The system was technically insolvent. The Bank of Japan made a decision. Cut rates. Keep failing banks alive. Prevent panic. Governor Yasushi Mieno called it necessary medicine. It was poison. Economists applauded. The IMF called it prudent. Not one said, "This will trap you for 30 years." By 1999, the Bank of Japan set rates to 0.0%. For the first time in history, a major economy paid nothing to borrow. Nothing. Zero. Here is how zero rates destroy a middle class. Step 1. They flood cheap money into the system. That money finds the fastest return, not wages, assets. Tokyo property prices rose 40% between 2012 and 2020. A salaryman's pay rose 2%. He was being priced out of his own city. Quietly, officially. Step 2. Zombie companies. Banks kept lending to firms that should have died. Dead businesses, still breathing on borrowed money, blocking new ones from entering. By 2005, 1 in 3 Japanese workers was in non-permanent employment. No pension, no security, no path forward. The term they coined, working poor. Step 3. Savings punished. A grandmother who saved her whole life earned nothing on her deposits. Zero. Her thrift became irrelevant. The bank rewarded borrowers, not savers. The rich bought assets with cheap debt. The middle class had no assets to buy. That gap only grows. That is the machine. That is what zero does. Now look at America. After 2008, the Federal Reserve cut rates to near zero. They held them there for 7 years. The same playbook, different continent. Then 2020 arrived. Rates went back to zero. The Fed's balance sheet ballooned to $9 trillion. Money flooded equities and housing, not paychecks. The S&P 500 doubled between 2020 and 2022. Median American wages rose 8%. The top 10% own 93% of all stocks. The math is not subtle. U.S. homeownership for under 40s has collapsed to 1960s levels. The median home now costs 8 times the median salary. Japan hit that number in 1990, right before the crash. American corporations now carry $13 trillion in debt. Many are zombie firms, surviving only because refinancing stays cheap. Raise rates, and they fall. The Fed knows this. Japan's flash crash of August 2024 started when their central bank raised rates by 0.25%. Global markets dropped 5% in a single day. That is how fragile this architecture is. Japan's point of no return came in March 2001. The Bank of Japan launched quantitative easing, the first central bank in history to do so. A threshold crossed quietly. America crossed its own threshold in March 2020. The CARES Act, $2.3 trillion, unlimited QE declared. Jerome Powell said the Fed would use all its tools. It meant there is no floor. U.S. federal debt now stands at $36 trillion. Interest payments alone consume $1 trillion a year. Rates cannot stay high, but they cannot go to zero forever. There is no clean exit. Japan spent 30 years waiting for growth that never returned. Their central bank now owns half the country's government bonds. Half. At what point does a nation own itself? You are watching this at the exact moment the American version of this story is being written. Not in the future. Right now. The decisions are being made in rooms you are not in. The people who understood Japan's lost decade in 1995 were called alarmists. They were just early. If this channel is the place you come to be early, you know what to do.